Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible has put on incorruption, and this mortal has put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your sting? O Hades, where is your victory? Strong's defines corruptible as decayed, that is, by implication, perishable. It's taken from the root meaning to shrivel or wither, that is, to spoil, by any process or genitive, to ruin. Our word corruption in the following passage is taken from the same root. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap Aeonian life. This corruptible and mortal must put on incorruption and immortality. We must and shall all be changed. Why? Because the kingdom of heaven is not a kingdom of flesh and blood and the soul or self whose mind is set on the flesh. As we know, the body returns to the dust from which it came, while the spirit returns to God who gave it. And the soul or self, it is destroyed, not in the sense of non-existence, but rather due to transformation. We shall be changed, made different. Our love for the self completely swallowed up by our love for God and others. When we live totally after the self, we are very much alone, regardless of how many people may be in our lives. Social media proves this every single day. It is not good that the man should be alone. How did Paul put it? If this tent is destroyed, we have a building from God. A building from God? That seems a bit unusual, doesn't it? Not at all, for this same word is employed in the following. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field. You are God's building. Friend, we are God's building, made up not of one, but of many. As Paul continues in 1 Corinthians 3, he speaks of laying the foundation while others build on it. He tells us that every man's work on this building is tested by fire, and much of it is burned or destroyed. He then comes to some passages that have long bothered me until recently. Please consider. Do you not know that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him. For the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. God's building is God's temple, a collective temple, not a building of one, but of many. So, the principle states, he who sows to the nada Spirit will of the Spirit reap Aeonian life. What else did Paul say? For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body. I think it's safe to say that most of us are uncomfortable with the fact that if anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him. On the surface, this paints a picture of the wrathful and angry God that most are familiar with, a God who intends to put billions of souls into a place of eternal torment. But this passage has nothing at all to do with this idea. See our word destroy? This is the root from which our word corruptible is taken in 1 Corinthians 15:53 and 54. This being the case, the idea of destroy aligns perfectly with the necessary change that Paul speaks of in 1 Corinthians 15. Paul describes this destruction earlier in 1 Corinthians 3. Here are those passages along with 1 Corinthians 3:9, 16, and 17. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. According to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. Friend, the wood, hay, and straw denote the corruptible works, which have no advantage or place in his kingdom, while the gold, silver, and precious stones denote those which do and thus remain. The fire of God tests both. Fire consumes wood, hay, straw, but purifies gold, silver, and precious stones. So it is that each one's work will become manifest. And God's grace is apparent, for if anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. Vincent's word study states, he will escape as through the fire that consumes his work, as one does through the flames which destroy his house. We shall all be changed. Friend, despite what tradition says, God is not full of anger and ready to strike down those we decide are the enemy. Rather, God is far, far above such human emotion and narrow-mindedness, and has designed the principle of sowing and reaping to accomplish the task of change. Remember, death is a necessary component in the mechanism of sowing and reaping. We shall all be changed. Do you mean all Christians? No, I mean all, that is, everyone. Remember what Paul said, "For as in Adam all die, so also in Christ shall all be made alive. The same all who died in Adam is the same all raised in Christ. No one is left out, but each in his own order." The principle of sowing and reaping is not a Christian principle applying to Christians only. Reality proves this beyond any shadow of a doubt. No wonder Paul called resurrection a mystery, one that, despite what tradition says, has nothing to do with a rapture where we are taken out of this world so God can wreak his vengeance upon those who are left behind. Can we not see how truly arrogant, self-absorbed, and erroneous this teaching is? Doesn't this completely contradict what Jesus said in Matthew 5:14 and John 15:13? Finally, we come to the last trumpet. Friend, this trumpet is not literal, and neither are any of the trumpets of Revelation. John identifies the trumpet in the following: I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet saying, "Write what you see in a book." After this I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice, which I had heard speaking to me like a trumpet, said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." Just as a trumpet cannot be heard until the air passes through it, so too, the trumpets of the Lord are not heard until his Spirit brings his words to life. So it is that the sounding of any trumpet represents the initiation and unfolding of the words of Christ at the proper time and season. Consider what Jesus said regarding his words. "I have come into the world as light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness. If anyone hears my words and does not keep them, I do not judge him. For I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. The one who rejects me and does not receive my words has a judge. The word that I have spoken will judge him on the last day. For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me has himself given me a commandment, what to say and what to speak. and I know that his commandment is Aeonian life. What I say, therefore, I say as the Father has told me. Be sure to join me for the next video study, where we will take a look at the last trumpet and the last day.